Let's get to Washington this morning. Our Megan Cassella joins us with the latest on tariffs and what we might expect today and in the very important coming days. Megan, good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. So the president has now formally extended the deadline for all of those so-called reciprocal tariffs from July 9th tomorrow to the end of the month. So those country-specific tariffs that were supposed to take effect tomorrow against about 60 or so U.S. trading partners are now delayed until August 1st at the earliest. And at the same time, the president is also upping the pressure on a number of those trading partners. He sent letters to 14 of them yesterday, informing them of the tariff rate that he'll place on all of their exports to the U.S. unless they strike a deal before the end of the month. You can see most of them here. The rates range from about 25% for larger trading partners like Japan and South Korea to 40% on the high end for countries that included Laos and Myanmar. And for the most part, these rates closely match or are lower than the reciprocal rates the president announced back in April. So the truly new piece here then is at least a few more weeks to negotiate. And countries have been responding overnight. Japan just announced that its tariff negotiator spoke with the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent this morning. So we expect more talks and more proposals exchanged in the coming days and weeks. President Trump, meanwhile, was also asked how firm that August 1st deadline is. Here's his response.
No, I would say firm, but not 100% firm. If they call up and they say, would like to do something a different way, we're going to be open to that. But essentially, that's the way it is right now.
He went on to say the letters were more or less the final offer and that, quote, we are always looking to negotiate something that's fair. So, guys, the window is definitely still open here for these rates to change once again. Guys.
Megan, it seemed like the tone at the presser, the briefing yesterday, was what happened to 90 deals in 90 days, and that notion that in April the phones were, quote, ringing off the hook. That's something that Bessent actually did a bit of a U-turn on over the weekend.
This is, I think, a matter of reality sort of catching up with the optimism that we were seeing in April. We've talked several times about how hard it is to negotiate trade deals, how long negotiations typically take. 90 deals in 90 days was always going to be a pie-in-the-sky idea and not something that was all that likely. So that's catching up to them now. They're recognizing that, especially with so much else on their plate, they've been distracted by Congress negotiations, Israel-Iran negotiations and everything else. They haven't had the bandwidth to negotiate the way they want to. This is a recognition of that. They're saying we still mean business, we still want these rates, and that's what we saw in the letters yesterday. They still want to keep talking. But even some of the countries that are responding, I think it was South Korea that said there was simply insufficient time to negotiate a deal. We're also seeing countries not really backing down and not giving in to the deadline pressure. Kind of different from what we saw in the first term, but a lot of these bigger trading partners, China, Japan, South Korea, among them, saying their national interest is still in the top priority. They're not going to just take what Japan called simplistic compromises as the easy way out. So that means these negotiations just take longer than the administration thought.
Megan, of course, I found the Southeast Asian countries of note, Cambodia, Bangladesh, I guess not really Southeast, but still in that region when it comes to retail and manufacturing, because if you don't go to China, we know there has been some shifting. Vietnam, of course, is very, very high up there. And that was sort of a previous discussion point here in the trade deals. But then the Cambodia, the Bangladeshs of the world, still relatively high. But I also imagine if it's a true negotiation, they may not have that much to give the United States. I don't believe that we do a lot of exporting to those countries either, right?
We don't. They're not major trading partners, but of course they have major impact for any companies that are based there, headquartered there, and that matters, of course, a lot for retail. But you're right. These are countries that don't have huge economies, and while we tend to buy a fair amount from them, they really don't buy a lot from the United States. We are seeing some of the smaller countries say they're looking for ways to buy more from the United States. I believe it was Thailand that said they have new proposals now to try to reduce the trade deficit with the U.S. within 6 to 7 years. So that means they're finding ways to look at something they can buy in the U.S. But when they don't have a huge economy, there's not that much that they can do to try to reduce it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, those deficits, going to be tough to turn in those cases. Megan, thank you very much.